Direction given. Closed session. Our next item on the agenda is open session. Pledge of Allegiance. We have some visitors. Thank you.
Right here.
Welcome.
Thank you for having us. We're from Ophir Elementary School, and this will be our last time before summer break coming to lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. So thanks again for having us. One over here, Brian. Go right to the microphone. Go ahead.
Thank you for inviting us to lead your meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. We are students from Ophir Elementary School. My name is Brian Flicker. Saying the Pledge of Allegiance helps form a connection to our country, the United States of America.
My name is Noah Wilkins. We are a country with a diverse population. Saying the Pledge of Allegiance instills a sense of patriotism for all people. When we say the Pledge of Allegiance, we honor the flag and everything it represents.
My name is Ava Maria Riley. We are saying the Pledge of Allegiance to start our day at school. To begin official meetings or ceremonies, and we honor the flag at special events like ball games. We would like to lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job. Can they all come up here? I want to shake them. Thank you very much. Good job. Good. Go ahead. Good job. Good job. Thank you. Noah, there's your certificate.
Thank you.
And Miss O'Reilly. And then Mr. Flicker. You bet. Good job. Good job, guys. Thank you. Thank you to Ophir School for providing our folks for that. It's been a big help. Thank you very much. Next item is adoption of agenda. Do I hear any motions?
I move that we adopt the agenda.
I second.
Motion and seconded. Now we roll call, please.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Thank you all. Next item, presentation and proclamations. Christina Buck from the Assistant Director of Butte County Department of Water Resource Conservation will give us a presentation on possible long-term funding mechanisms for the Wyandotte Creek Groundwater Sustainability Agency. Welcome.
There you go.
Oh, it's on like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening. Thank you, Christina Buck, Assistant Director with Butte County Department of Water and Resource Conservation. I'm going to give you an update on what the Wyandotte Creek Groundwater Sustainability Agency has been up to, and importantly, the funding mechanism that they're working on. So with that, I think I have control here maybe. Will it go?
There you go.
I got it. Okay. So a little background first. The state passed the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, SGMA, in 2014, really in response to severely dry conditions of the 2013, 14, 15 drought that was happening at that time, and declining groundwater levels, especially in the southern part of the Central Valley, land subsidence, dry wells, and really the state. And throughout the state, we recognized that we needed to get a better handle on managing groundwater. And so this law passed, and it required a few things. First, it created groundwater sustainability agencies and really tasked those agencies, local agencies, with the authority and the responsibility to manage groundwater. And so at that time, the Wyandotte Creek Groundwater Sustainability Agency was formed for this subbasin. But the responsibility there was first to develop and adopt a groundwater sustainability plan, and there's a number of things that were required in the plan, and that had to be submitted and finished by January of 2022, so that was done last year. And then it kind of starts this implementation period of implementing projects and policies as necessary to achieve or maintain sustainable conditions within the groundwater system. So in addition to that, it's required to be monitoring groundwater levels and other groundwater conditions and reporting out to the state each year kind of on those conditions. So a whole new program. Butte County was doing some of these things already throughout the county and has a network of monitoring wells that have been monitored, some of them back to the 1940s and 50s. So it's not a new thing for us here to want good data and care about our water resources and manage them. But this created a new framework and requirements at the state level that we needed to comply with. So just a quick lay of the land for Wyandotte Creek Subbasin to orient us a little bit. So the map on the left there, you can see kind of land use, general land use categories for the subbasin. So it goes up to the north, right along the forebay up there. To the west is the afterbay, and the western boundary is the Feather River. And so the city of Oroville, is the developed land areas there in kind of a purplish blue color, and then the southern part of the subbasin down to the county line is essentially that southern boundary, with the exception of a little blip, which is the Ramirez Water District or Irrigation District, and a mix of irrigated agriculture in the southern part of the subbasin, as well as other land uses, which are mostly non-irrigated, kind of grazing land. And then the map on the right shows you kind of the water source for those things. So you can see Wyandotte Creek is in the agricultural part of the subbasin, dependent on wells for groundwater, for irrigation that's happening there, and surface water. This doesn't really show the developed part of the subbasin, but as you know, Cal Water, South Feather Water and Power, and Thermalito Water and Sewer District supply surface water sources from Feather River to many households in the Oroville area. So it's really a subbasin that has a mix of land use and a mix of water sources. So that's important, kind of the funding piece as well. So as I mentioned, the law passed, and then the GSA was formed. So just to remind us, it's a formation of 3 agencies. So the city of Oroville is one of those 3-member agencies, along with Butte County and Thermalito Water and Sewer District, and that formed the Wyandotte Creek GSA, which has its own 5-member board, and also a Wyandotte Creek Advisory Committee that has agricultural representatives. Cal Water, South Feather is on it and has some vacancies. So if you know folks and want to point them in our direction that are interested in water, there's availability for that committee. And then the management committee, which is staff from each of these agencies that support the activities of the board and the committee. So kind of where we've been and where we're heading up to about January 2022, which is when we submitted the Groundwater Sustainability Plan. Activities were funded by a DWR, Department of Water Resources grant. So we had $1.5 million to develop actually 3 groundwater sustainability plans, one for Wyandotte Creek, and then there's 2 other subbasins in Butte County. And then member in-kind contributions, so staff time and work to to manage the contracts and the consultants that did that work. So now we've entered kind of this new phase of implementing the plan, and moving forward, the GSA really needs a new sustainable funding source to do some of the very baseline activities. The intent would be to continue to pursue grant funds for bigger projects or additional monitoring or things like that, but for really just surviving as an agency and carrying out the required pieces of the legislation, there's some local funding that's needed. So those are kind of the three pieces of long-term funding that's needed: GSA administration to operate the GSA, GSP implementation, which can include things like increased monitoring and filling some of the gaps in information that we identified in the plan. Really, in Wyandotte Creek, the basin groundwater conditions are relatively stable and are currently sustainable. So maintaining those good conditions here is what we need to continue to do, and also adding to the monitoring network. There's some limited wells that we measure each year to understand the conditions, but there's a need for kind of additional data analysis and monitoring. And then the third piece there is the SGMA compliance. So that's the yearly reports that are required. There's 5-year updates and the monitoring that's required as well. So initially, when the GSA began this conversation around funding, there's a number of different funding mechanisms that agencies can use to raise money. And pretty quickly, the fee piece was identified. And so Proposition 218 is a per acre fee that is really a cost for service. So the Groundwater Sustainability Agency is really providing a service of groundwater management and compliance for the land within the subbasin with the requirements of the state legislation. So just an overview of the process under a Proposition 218 fee. First, you have to identify the costs and what those revenue needs are. So that is just establishing what will be funded and how much is it. And then developing allocation costs methods. So who's going to pay and how do you spread out that cost? Documenting that in a technical memorandum. And that has maybe multiple options that could be used for the fee. And then the preferred fee kind of method or option is identified and included in the engineer report or the fee study report. And that is the document that really describes what the fee is, who's paying it, how those costs got allocated, and the benefits that are coming from the fee. So after the fee study is adopted by the board, the fee is noticed. So there's a notice that gets mailed out to every parcel subject to the fee. And then the board will hold a protest hearing. So each parcel has the opportunity to protest the fee. And if there's not a majority protest, then the board can adopt the fee. And the fee is placed on the assessor's tax roll. So that's kind of the overall process. So this is a public process, and this really presentation to you is part of that. Our director, Cami Loser, did most of these, so you get me, but she did kind of a round show to Thermalito Water and Sewer District, South Feather, to other user groups. We've talked to Farm Bureau and others, really just wanting to let people know kind of what's coming with regards to this fee. Okay, so like I said, the first step is establishing those revenue needs, what costs are needed and what are they for. This is really way too tiny, so the details are in the technical memo, and that's posted online. But really there's two categories: administration, so some staff time, and that would be a program manager. The proposal is that it would be a program manager employed by the county but kind of paid for by the Wyandotte Creek GSA, and also shared with the Vina Subbasin GSA. So some cost savings there by sharing a position, and then other office supplies and things like that for administering the GSA. And then the compliance piece is what I've mentioned before: the annual reporting, the monitoring, the 5-year updates, and the data management that's required for SGMA. So the next step then is to look at different options of collecting or distributing a fee. And so the first and kind of simplest, right, is a uniform cost. You just spread the total revenue needs over the acreage of the subbasin evenly, and that's the uniform cost or fee per acre. A second option would be to recognize irrigated and non-irrigated lands, and that there's differential benefit to groundwater management from users of groundwater, and so kind of making a differentiation there and having a different fee for irrigated lands versus non-irrigated lands. Or you could use land use and kind of do a hybrid of that. So the Wyandotte Creek GSA board discussed all of these and spent quite a bit of time really weighing in on this irrigated, non-irrigated land option and what that could look like and how you would define those things. So just to give you an idea of kind of order of magnitude of what we're talking about, if the uniform cost per acre, just as an example, spread over the subbasin is about, this is a 5-year planning horizon, but on average, if you average that out, it's about $4.53 per acre. The Wyandotte Creek GSA board has talked more about the irrigated, non-irrigated, and they've voted to move 2 options that really distribute the costs more to irrigated lands and much less to the non-irrigated acreage. And that's what they're going to be considering this week on Thursday at their board meeting as to which option will end up in their fee study report. So that is the update. They, like I said, on Thursday will be considering approval of the fee study and what fee is included in that. And then there's a 45-day noticing period, so notices will go out toward the end of the month or the beginning of June. And then people will have heard about this and will probably have questions, so we will probably hold a public workshop in June to be able to answer questions and just provide more information on what this fee is about. And then the board will have their public hearing, protest hearing, and potential adoption of the fee at the end of July. We're really working toward the August 10th deadline, which is to get the information to the assessor's office so that it can be on the tax rolls this next round. So that's the timeline and where we're headed. All of this information is on the Wyandotte Creek GSA website, and there's a funding mechanisms page, so there's more information there. Really encouraging folks to check that out if they're interested. And then there's a comments email, of course, that folks can send comments to or questions to. And if you or others are interested in kind of tracking and learning more about groundwater management in the Wyandotte Creek subbasin, we encourage you to join our email list as well, and then you'll get all kinds of notices about upcoming meetings and what's happening. So with that, welcome any questions.
Open for questions. Vice Mayor Smith.
Yeah, I have more of a statement than a question, and you correct me where I might get off the rail or off the track. So essentially, this is an unfunded mandate from Sacramento that says, counties, you will manage your groundwater. And you're tasked with figuring out how to pay for that mandate. So the concern is that if we keep drawing the water out of the ground, at some point, wells will go dry, people will die, animals will starve. That's kind of it from a 30,000-foot level. Ironically, and that's a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. But in Butte County, not so much. I mean, generally, our groundwater's the sustained amount has been pretty good over time. But nevertheless, we have to do this. So now we have to figure out how to pay for that. So probably if you live here in the city, the impact to you, because most of us don't own wells in the city limits because we have, municipal water. However, those municipal water drawers that draw from wells, and in particular agriculture, they're the ones that are going to probably pay the most for this fee, this implementation, which goes back to that whole controversy. Are they going to put something on my well and then calculate how much water's coming out of my well and charge me accordingly? Nobody's going to put a meter on my well. I got come hell or high water, no pun intended. And so if you've been following this at all, that's been some of the conversation. But at the end of the day, probably the impact will be maybe some increased rates on our water, maybe a little bit if you live in the city limits. But the big outpay is from agriculture. So, potentially you could see a little bump in food prices, although with all the other impacts of food prices, we probably wouldn't notice it per se. But at the end of the day, it's an unfunded mandate from Sacramento, more government regulation, more government oversight of your life, in the fear of that one day there might be a problem with the groundwater. And in Southern California, that's a huge issue. In fact, they have the subsidy where the ground's actually sinking. In fact, down there, they actually pump the water back into the ground. They have big pumps, and they pump it into the ground, which is really fascinating. But anyway, I think just giving my synopsis of everything you just said, that kind of just boils down to that. That's where we are. And we're in that process now of alerting the public, this is what we think we're going to do, and it's coming to a city near you.
Yep.
Pretty much?
Yep, that's a good overview. I would just add that the per acre fee is on every acre of land, and it will go to landowners on your tax bill. So whether you're in the city or not, if you have a half an acre and it's a $4 per acre charge, you would have a $2.
So that's my question.
Charge on your tax bill.
Is that per acre of land that has a permitted well associated with that parcel, or just land period?
Yeah, so the uniform charge approach is just land in the subbasin has that charge.
So this is the way we worked around angering all of the agriculture folks.
So, yeah.
So instead of putting a meter on their well and really getting them angry, we're just going to get everybody equally.
Yep.
Basically, I mean, I'm just calling it how I see it.
Yeah, in this subbasin, they are differentiating between irrigated and non-irrigated. So that more of the cost burden will fall on the irrigated and not on grazing land that doesn't use the water directly.
But what about residential properties, those kinds of things?
Yeah, so and that's falling within kind of the irrigated using water category. So they are also looking at an option that differentiates between surface water user primarily and groundwater users primarily. And on Thursday, they'll decide whether they kind of break that out.
So all of us will see an increased cost on our tax bill.
On your tax bill. That's great. That's correct.
Oh, okay. So we're not. I thought we were identifying people that had. Wow. Okay. So.
Yeah.
Very clever.
Yeah.
Spread the wealth.
Spread it out. Yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
no, I didn't have a question, but I was at I sit on that board, and I likened it to do unto your neighbor as you would unto yourself. So it's just the good neighborly golden rule. Spread the wealth.
I have a quick question I'd like to ask. If we chose not to have this Wyandotte Creek Groundwater Agency, is it my understanding that the state would just decide to take it over and they would run it?
Yeah. So there's a kind of state backstop to not complying with SGMA, and that is that the state board can come in and say, if you have chosen not to manage locally, then we will. And they have their own fee schedule, which is a per wellhead fee, and then a per acre foot fee, so volumetric fee.
Right.
Much more expensive than anything we're talking about.
So I notice our area of coverage pretty much stops at the afterbay.
Yep.
There's a number of wells that are along the afterbay that pump water that DWR operates. Would they be paying a fee?
No, so it's a good question. So the state and federal and tribal lands are kind of exempt from the fee.
Thank you. I thought about that. I just wanted to ask that question. You clarified it. I appreciate that. I understand this, and I do believe it's a good workaround that what you guys are doing, and I thank Councilman Goodson for serving on that committee, because it's about the best way to manage ourselves. If not, then the state will come in and manage it for us. So I think that's a key thing and component to this situation. And I worry that the next thing I understand is they might start regulating rainwater.
Haven't heard that yet.
Well, I already know farmers that are having to be taxed for rainwater collection of a drainage for use with livestock. So I hope we're not going to go down that path.
I hope not too, yeah.
Because there are already restrictions about how much rainwater you can collect on your property, which is scary. This is really scary, folks. But I appreciate your presentation, and it was very informative. Any other questions from council? Go ahead.
I have a question. So there were a number of options, and these were the ones that were looking at the uniform cost, irrigated and non-irrigated lands, and the hybrid approach. Those were the three that were recommended in that order, correct? So we're not visiting Meter, that's an ugly word. Meter.
Right. So metering is off.
That's off.
And at this point, since the presentation was put together, we know that actually the uniform fee is also off. So right now, what they're considering is the irrigated, non-irrigated.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great presentation.
Christina, any other questions that we have submitted at all for the?
I just want to say you do have a tough job, and I do appreciate all the work. I didn't mean
Thank
to
you.
come off
No,
like,
that's
just
good.
trying to just make it super clear so everyone knows
Yep.
exactly what we're talking about. And the challenge, it's a
Yeah.
big challenge.
It's a big challenge, yeah.
Thank
And this
you.
is the hardest part of it,
Yes.
right? I mean,
Yep.
Christina, thank you
These are
very
no fun.
much. Very informative. Very, very, very good presentation. Yeah. Next item is public communication, hearing of non-agenda items. Do we have any?
Mr. Mayor, we have 3 speakers.
Okay.
Our first speaker is Linan Pilley. Sorry. So, I wanted to share with you an event that the Oroville Rescue Mission is having. I'm the housing navigator for the Oroville Rescue Mission Resource Center here on Bird Street. And we are having a schmoozy purse luncheon this Saturday, May 20th. It's going to be from noon to 3 at the Southside Community Center, which is 2959 Lower Wyandotte. So the schmoozy purse luncheon is something that we have traditionally done to benefit the Women and Family Shelter. And the women and families in the shelter, women kind of experience life differently on the streets, and the ones in our shelter tend to be some of the most vulnerable for a variety of reasons. And so this luncheon is basically to raise funds to help them and help the facilities. And we're going to have purses at a variety of price points. We're going to have lunch, soup, salad, and dessert. We're going to have vendors like Paparazzi and Damsels in Defense, so you can shop for purses, for other items while you're having lunch. We're going to have Jim Mold, the voice of Oroville, who will be emceeing. We'll have a keynote speaker, Melissa Jameson from United Way. The tickets are $30 individually. It's $240 a table. You can sponsor or participate, and you can purchase them via the QR code on the flyers. We'll have some flyers at the table, also at the website, and you can also come down to the administrative office where the resource center is located and purchase them there. So we really hope that you'll come out and support us in this endeavor. Thank you.
Can we have the times again?
It is 12 to 3
12 to 3.
at the
Thank you.
Southside Community Center.
Excellent.
You can also purchase tickets at the event itself, should you not be able to purchase in advance.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sounds like a good event.
Our next speaker is Annie Terry.
Gosh, I didn't know it was going to be 2 back-to-back rescue mission things. But I just wanted to remind everyone that with the weather getting warmer and warmer, we already have our multipurpose room at the shelter that's open to guests at the rescue mission so that they don't have to leave during the day and they can stay in where it's cooler. It's also open right now to homeless folks in the community so they can come in and get out of the weather. And we offer them bottled water, and we serve lunch. It's open at 10 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock at night. So anyone needing a place to get out of the weather, feel free to refer people to the rescue mission. We put a movie on in the afternoon, and they sit and watch a movie together and hang out and just stay out of the weather. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that. Also, if anybody is wanting, if any gentleman, or if you're a woman and you want to come to the event, just come to the event, buy a ticket, and buy a purse. Right. But if any gentleman would like to come to the Schmoozy Purse Luncheon and help us to serve, we're also looking for servers. Just show up in a pair of slacks and a dress shirt at 11 o'clock at the Southside Community Center, and we'll put you to work. Right. Anyway, it's a salad bar, and like she said, soup and lunch and dessert, and women love to serve. I'm just saying that. I'm speaking for all women right there.
All right.
And that's all I have to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie.
Our last speaker is Bill Spear.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council, come this evening for a verse and a prayer. And the verse this evening is Proverbs 11:11 says, "Through the blessings of the upright a city is exalted, but by the mouth of the wicked it is destroyed." I'd like to thank you all for your service, and I think our city's looking pretty good. Thank you very much. Our state, not so much, but we need to pray for people to step up in leadership for our state. I'd like to thank the rescue mission and for all they're doing for the least of these. And it's a good night to be praying for our city to be exalted, since we got all these paving projects beginning to happen. And so we do need the blessings of God. So Father God, I thank you for our city and the people that you have enlisted to lead and guide. And we just pray for that wisdom from heaven. We pray for that supernatural provision. We pray for smooth streets and for the citizens, Lord. Our city would be a city on a hill that people would hear about, and it would draw people here, that we would prosper and be blessed. We thank you for the opportunities, and we pray blessings upon the paving. We know that you care about paving. Heaven is paved with streets of gold, and you talk about it in your holy word of how good the paving is. And so we pray for your kingdom come, your will for Oroville as it is in heaven, for smooth streets and for businesses growing. We pray for the rescue mission. As your word says, as we've done to the least of these, we've done unto you, that we would, the Mission Esperanza would be better than we even imagined as we put these plans to work, that you would continue to give that supernatural provision, supernatural wisdom, that other cities would come to see how Oroville is doing it to deal with their issues and problems. We continue to lift up the Hope Center and the hope that they bring, again, to the least of these. We love you. We thank you. We pray your blessings and anointing in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Mr. Mayor, that is the last of the public speakers.
Thank you all. Next item is consent agenda.
Like to pull item 2.
Pull item 2. Any other items on the consent agenda for discussion? If none, I'd like to entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
Motion that we approve the consent item without item number 2.
Second.
Let's call the roll.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Vice Mayor Smith, number 2, capital project task orders.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do appreciate all the effort and focus on our pavement needs. And so just for clarification, because when you look at this item number 2, it's actually, there's a lot of stuff in there. And in particular, there's this 3-phase piece with the downtown and then subsequent moving west to go almost, I think, all the way down to all the way down to Feather River Boulevard. And so, and it pretty much encompasses almost all of District F with those projects. And then the balance of the city, there's just one-off projects, all of them desperately needed. I am just wondering what and then going back to the comments of Councilman Weber, when we talked about this kind of 3-phase, 3-level approach to the needs of our paving in our community. And I'm kind of going down a rabbit trail just for a moment, and I'll bring it back to my question. So it's really laser focused. But within that, we talked about pavement projects the city can do with our new equipment, and then maybe a mid-tier with local paving contractors, and then the big boy stuff, right? That's just a deep dive, needing engineering and all of that. And so, as I'm looking at this this 3-phase, almost all of the downtown District F, and then just a hit and miss around the city. Just kind of wondering what was the thinking process in there, because my original thought as I saw it was that we were going to do kind of like a comprehensive needs assessment citywide, identifying all the various areas in which some of those projects are here. But then when it comes to an actual, we're going to draw a line around, the city, it's very distinct around the downtown, which is desperately needed. We know we have, the curbs are too high, we got some issues with traffic issues there. But then the next area is predominantly residential, and then another predominantly residential with some commercial. And so when it comes to the deep dive, it seems like there's just a real super laser focus on almost all of District F and the rest of the city not included. And I'm just wondering what the thinking process is there, and I might be missing something here for clarification. So as I look at it, it just looks like there was a lot of attention given to a portion of the city and then a little less to the balance.
To answer your question, the downtown historic district that we've chosen for this task order is a slurry. So this just is a Band-Aid to buy us time before we have to grind and overlay this area. So some of the other roadways that we've brought forth task orders for are grind and overlay. Those are the ones that desperately need that full attention. So we're doing larger projects and the other sporadic, it looks like, roadways throughout the city based upon visual assessments from the engineering department and the streets department. And we've pulled those together. But for the downtown historic area, it's not at a point of grind and overlay. A slurry can provide us time to get to that point to where it does need a grind and overlay. So that was the intent behind that. We parsed it up into 3 sections or 3 phases so that we could, I guess, bites at the elephant, as our engineer would like to say. We can manage it phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 over the years, or as the engineering gets completed for those sections. But this, again, is just slurry for the downtown. It's not going to take care of the accessibility, ped ramps, curb gutter sidewalks, the above. It's just slurry to buy us time before we have to do a full grind and overlay.
Okay. So just a follow up to that. So we still have to have some sort of engineering look-see to even do slurry?
That's
Is that
correct.
What
they do
what
a
I'm being told
survey
here?
of the whole area. They do an evaluation of the utilities within that area and the striping, and they're also evaluating traffic calming measures because we have some notorious speeders in the downtown area.
And I get that piece because we're changing the actual roadway and what the signage looks like. There's a lot of moving pieces. I understand that process. So just help me to understand this then. So we have our own paving equipment, and that paving equipment can be utilized to mitigate problem areas in the city. So what's the difference between, I'm looking at, what's that street over by the high school?
Norton.
Like Norton, which is just the street's been beat it's not even a street. It's almost like a gravel road. So what would be, maybe that needs to be engineered too before we could do any kind of paving. But are there areas where we can patch and utilize that equipment without engineering? And then how's that assessment
Yes,
done?
and our city staff can do smaller areas that don't exceed $60,000. We can't exceed that $60,000 threshold. That's considered our force account. For areas like Norton, we can patch some of the larger, more problem areas on that roadway to buy us time, again, before we have to do a full grind and overlay. But that section also needs engineering, because once you get to a full roadway reconstruct, then accessibility has to be factored into that. At that point, full engineering, and we're going to exceed $200,000 for that location, which is going to require a RFP or a bid.
Yeah, okay, and I appreciate that. So there's the trigger. So the moment that it looks like we're going to exceed $60,000 on a repair, that triggers
It's
the
the
need?
actual work itself. and I can have Matt expand on it, but once we get beyond maintenance or routine repairs, and it gets to be a larger project, then it triggers accessibility.
Well, no, I think your explanation is adequate. I was just wondering what those how do you then determine? Okay, that needs to be engineered. We can do that one off on our own.
I think the Norton's a great example. I think a lot of the problems out there stem from the drainage or the lack of drainage out there. That's where an engineering study is going to come in really handy. We identify where the water's coming from and how to best deal with it. And once you deal with that, your pavements last much longer. So, again, that's a good example of when you do need an engineer, but if we're just out on a pretty flat lands and
the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I'm sure that at some point as we begin to do the work, within the community, some people are going to say, man, my road is just, why did they get, special treatment and we're being not included in this, or the timelines. And so I think it's just really important for everyone to have including myself, how those decisions are made and how we move forward as a community. This is deferred maintenance, off the rail, and it's a problem that's going to take
many years.
It's just going to take some time.
Right.
And just not to get into the weeds on that particular street, but that street's so narrow too. It was just never. I don't even know what you do with that.
We've been debating that with the engineers.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can't. How could you? Once you get sidewalks on there, where are you going to drive? You need a motorcycle or something. But anyway, that's a whole nother issue. Yeah. But thank you for the answer.
Absolutely.
No, if I can add to that as well. I know we've been talking about this. I think since I've been here about just how the roads are prioritized, and obviously it is a priority of this council. And how do we go? Where do we go from there? And we're even talking this morning about just in the future, making sure that the public does know. Because to your point, there's a lot of roads out there that need assistance, and where do you start? So we talked about strategy in order to just make sure we assess it. Because right now, frankly, the assessment's done. It's based, our public works team is out on the roads on a daily basis. They know where they're doing repair work. They know which roads are the worst out there. Collectively, public works and our engineering team here in-house are making some decisions right now which ones are the worst and need the most immediate attention. But we have talked about just different processes in the future as we have resources now that we haven't had in the past to try to better, have a process in place to address these roads.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Goodson.
Yes. Don, can you speak to what I think all of us have continued to hear the loudest roar in the community because of the torrents of rain which dislodged and are potholes, right? Mm-hmm. That's what they are. And so I know that that's the main concern for most of the people in the residential areas, mm-hmm. On your roads. And my question is, what is the timeline for when the city is going to address that type of? To me, it's like a superficial. You can do now.
Yes,
fix, and it certainly would be less than 60,000. Correct. So, can you just let people know when those will be mitigated?
So once we receive our new piece of paving equipment, which we hope that to be in the fall, our streets manager, Mr. Atterbury's already been putting together a list of areas that he feels that we can grind and do a simple overlay rather quickly. The areas that need the most attention, there's some locations on South Fifth, there's some locations on Lower Wyandotte, there's some other obvious areas that could use that attention. So once we have that list put together, we receive the paving equipment, they'll do some practice areas that are not as heavily traveled, and then they'll get running from there.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilman Weber.
Thank you. I guess this is a question for our engineer. How far can we go with our own needs assessment then before we have to hire a consultant to tell us what we need to do?
things that I look for, though, I would need help with is one, drainage, getting the topography and looking at that. Two is right away. It's very important to know what your limits are for the property lines and things like that. So those are just two right off the top of cuff answers of what I've got. If we know we're between the curb lines and there's no obvious drainage problems, doing the maintenance or that new contracting ability we will have for under what?
200,000.
Under 200,000. That'll give us make us a lot more nimble and be able to respond quicker. We'll be able to put out a quick request for proposals directly to contractors with some minor documentation in the contract. That'll make it a lot more nimble.
Okay, thank you. That's exactly what I thought it was. I thought it was from, gutter to gutter that we had, basically our own discretion, do what we want because it's our road. And so, yeah, tier 1 and tier 2 would cover quite a bit with our paving crew having their own paver, which, by the way, we got our striping machine yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to go look at it at the courtyard tomorrow. So I'm excited about that. Yeah, cool. So they're going to be training with it tomorrow, so that's going to be super cool. But yeah, tier 2 would be like, for instance, like could we, with using Norton as a primary example, and that's your district, obviously it has water issues, right? Clearly, because it's undermining the road, so it needs a full, engineering spec. But in the meantime, using the tier 1 or tier 2, we could maybe do a simple overlay on that and give that neighborhood a 25-mile-an-hour road rather than a 10-mile-an-hour road.
Maybe a tier 1, because under the tier 2, under the $200,000, it has to be a full complete project that falls under the $200,000.
Okay.
You can't split it out as in just doing this piece this month and then this piece next month. That would be against the rules there.
Gotcha.
Be being sneaky.
Right, we can't.
Yes,
No, we
the
don't want to
state
be
doesn't
sneaky.
like that.
And then I think I already heard this, but maybe so as we move forward, and I think you were just addressing this, like we're developing a needs assessment team, perhaps, and because I think Wade and those guys would be great for that too, because they got their eyes on the ground constantly, right?
Oh, they're a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because and this will be my final thing I want to say, because I'm just slightly concerned with us relying too much on consultants to do what we could do. Not that I'm trying to imply that we're not, because I think you guys are doing a great job. But I just don't want to get too top heavy on relying on a consultant, because and bear with me for a minute, I don't want a consultant to go out there and tell us you need all this stuff and blow up this gigantic project, and we pay a bunch of money for the consultant to tell us what we need to do, and they give us an over-exaggerated project cost when maybe we could have addressed it at tier 1 without all that stuff, and then we would have saved a whole bunch of money and been able to put those resources in other places.
Yeah.
You follow what I'm saying?
Yes, when we utilize our consultants, we provide them with the direction as to what we want them to do.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any others to speak on it? I'll just add, one of the problems with Norton, it doesn't have any curb and gutter. So it's a gravel road. So we obviously that needs to be on the part of this. And we have so many streets, it's a big discussion. So I appreciate all the discussion and all the effort here. We're looking for a lot of things. Plus, the slurry seal, we don't have capability of the city to do that, do we? That's a contract out.
Correct.
That's a contract out, okay. All right, are you ready for a motion on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I make a motion that we accept item number 2 on the consent agenda as stated.
A second.
Call the roll, please.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Thank you. Regular business, item number 8. What is that? Oh, Wes, all right. There you go, you're on.
Thank you, council members, Mr. Mayor, and assembled citizens. Before you is an opportunity to advance revitalization in South Side. This is a goal that we've all shared for some time. Progress has been made, but not as much as we all would have hoped. So what is this newest initiative? I have personally long known that the American Planning Association, APA, the California chapter has a pro bono program to help communities with their planning and revitalization challenges. I've personally been involved in several such efforts, only one with APA, but several with other organizations over the years. So I reached out to APA in early February about Southside, and we've talked. We've had a couple of Zoom meetings and scopes changing back and forth. And so we've worked out an agenda which would give us significant outside planning and revitalization expertise for only the cost of travel. One of the members that is part of this team has both planning and economic development expertise. So why Southside? As you know, in 2015, Oroville annexed this 1960s working housing area with the existing zoning. We took on a community with small lots, small homes, and high poverty and high rental percentages. Staff started looking at Southside in about 2018 after the recession and after we started staffing up again as an opportunity area. And so what have we done since then? We've had 2 community meetings, one in 2018, one in 2019. The second one in 2019 was the second day where COVID restrictions started. So we pretty much truncated the community meeting effort. So we had 2 or 3 more community meetings in 2002 when the COVID restrictions finally ended. With those meetings, what we have done is collectively identified many key, and the primary theme that we've heard over and over and over again is pride of ownership. A lot of action items, including cleanup efforts, rezoning, code compliance. Code enforcement has done a terrific job down there and also throughout the city. Neighborhood watch, a facade and blighted property loan program, crime prevention and support for those in need, not to mention streetlights, curb gutters, and sidewalks where they're absent as well. So also out of those meetings came the Grassroots Phoenix Rising program that was started locally by local citizens to help those in need. It's so far had limited success. It's primarily because it and most efforts like this are totally volunteer driven. It's hard to keep a volunteer group active for a long period of time without some financial and or staffing assistance. What else have we done? We've completed a grant-funded blight study. We've identified that some 35% of the structures in South Oroville have some need for rehabilitation, such as roofs, paint, general cleanup, and other items. Windows needing repair, etc. This will help, this study, when we can use it, will help justify future programs and grant funding that we can use to maybe start a facade program or a housing rehab program, and we have some other grant funding which is earmarked for that purpose. We also have softened side and rear setback requirements for the 644 lots in the area that are zoned R1 but are smaller than the 5,000 square foot minimum in our zoning code for R1 lots. So we have encouraged smaller setbacks so that you can build a standard size home on those smaller lots. We have a drainage study underway which will tell us how to keep our streets drier, especially on the west side, the low side of Elgin, Fort Wayne, and Greenville over there, where all the water runs to. We've got other ideas, lots of them on a list, but all these efforts are quite limited by lack of staff time, lack of funding, etc., and the need for a comprehensive plan. So this group of planning experts can help us with that. We have asked them to use their experience to give us a long-term vision for the area, to identify the area's greatest needs and roadblocks. This is not just us, but it's also outside expertise coming in. To give us suggested rezonings to encourage new investment. A lot of the zoning in South Oroville is C2, heavy commercial, where a neighborhood, smaller commercial zoning is more logical. Several residential areas are zoned commercial, so if somebody wants to put in a mixed use or a house in that area, they're precluded from doing so. So there's lots of logical rezonings that can occur down there. We've also asked them to look at a possible plan to create a mini downtown or village core, something we all know where Wyandotte and Myers are down there. Lots of commercial, lots of need for revitalization. So ideally, perhaps, I mean, my vision, I don't know what their vision will be, but mine is a sort of a mixed-use community with lots of smaller commercial, service commercial, and retail that serves multifamily residences and the residents of South Oroville without them having to walk up to Oro Dam and cross the road to go to Rayleigh's and that sort of thing. We seek catalyst projects, which hopefully can be funded and staffed properly so that significant and important changes can happen there. Lastly, if successful, this or something similar could be adapted to downtown and North Oroville. Our housing element has designated those two portions of town also as areas of poverty and high renter occupancy. So we ask for your support. Are either of the names on there? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Wes. Good presentation. Any questions of council? Councilman Goodson.
I don't have any questions. I know that over the years, even prior to me relocating to the Oroville area, that there has been a multiplicity of these kinds of studies. And it is my hope that, and because you have to have hope, if you don't succeed the first time, try again. And so this is what we're doing. Wes, I want to appreciate you for your stick-to-itiveness. What you did not mention was the Lincoln Project.
That's correct.
That
Yeah,
was
I didn't.
very huge, and thank you so much, Amy and Dawn, Ron, our attorney, and I know that Bill Agrone was a part of that too. So thank you, and let's continue to move forward. And I know that a part of this project is going to be open up for community input. It is my hope that the community does show up, show out, and we can give them a plan with milestones and measurable goals.
Thank you. Yes, the event or the visit is designed around community. Charrette is a common way to describe workshops and such, and several meetings and interviews. So this is definitely one designed with optimal community input in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Councilman Thompson.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Look forward to seeing Southside get improved. I hope that in the study that sidewalks and lighting are a key part of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that would be a huge improvement. The community's having a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
That's, yes, some of the standard wisdom in planning and in Congress and other places is that infrastructure is one of the best bangs for your buck.
Yeah, especially as, in my view of what the government is responsible for and not responsible for. You know, I think the infrastructure, such as streets, gutters, sidewalk, lighting, are basic things that are the city's, I wouldn't say owes, but in some degree, is responsible to provide for its citizens. So,
Absolutely. In our community meetings, street lighting in particular was emphasized a lot by the
Absolutely.
citizens.
yeah, better
Right.
streets, sidewalks, lighting. Yeah.
Vice Mayor Smith.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the presentation. We all know what they say about real estate: location, 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 right? And I'm just looking at the realestate.com south side here. There's houses in there that are under 150,000. I think that South Side is a major diamond in the rough, and I'm super excited about the community taking the bull by the horns. And I think that when you think about priorities in our communities, they change. The millennials are into being minimalist and all of that. I think there's a lot of untapped opportunity that perhaps this group will root out, and to kind of retool and when we think about rebranding something, right? And as we continue to move forward, I just think that there's tremendous untapped opportunity in that community. I think that when you begin to see yourself differently, and that rather in seeing yourself in the position of empowerment and opportunity, and I hope that these folks coming up will deposit that in Southside, because when I think about a home of like size, just a couple hours to the south, it's for something, it could be over $1 million in value. Again, it comes back to that location. But what makes that more desirable than where we are here? It's about perception, community, and all of that. So anyway, I just want to say I'm in support of this. I think that the future is bright for Southside and opportunity, and the reason why I say that is because there's people in there that care, like Councilwoman Goodson and others that care, and that's the biggest I think factor over and above the location or the history. It's that people care, and at the end of the day, that's going to get it across the finish line. So thank you.
You have used the word opportunity several times, and what I did not mention is that this area is part of a designated federal opportunity zone, and what that does is that allows investment groups to get tax credits for long-term investments in the area, in the opportunity zone area, and we would love to be able to recruit and or encourage some of those groups to get formed so that they can invest. The other little tidbit is that I look at LoopNet now and then, which is a commercial real estate, and Pigs Liquor, Pigs Bar, the building is up for sale right now. So we'd like to see more opportunities like that.
Thank you. A couple quick questions. One is, there is a facade plan that was done for Myers Street, the small businesses there, that the redevelopment agency did some time ago. And the plan 2010, thank you. Also, part of that is just something to put on the task list to look up, is PG&E on their undergrounding program had committed to the Myers Street portion of the city, and then the county had committed the other portion of Myers Street for undergrounding. It'd be good to probably contact PG&E and find out where that status is. Those poles and whatnot that are in front of those businesses are probably keeping most of our auto body shops in business around here, because they're in the wrong place. They're barricaded with heavy steel, and to put those underground would be a prime example of PG&E doing a good work for us. They've already committed to undergrounding power lines all over the place, so I think Myers Street would be a good start for us to see. So it might be a need to remind them about that particular project. So.
And Mayor Pittman, we have been working with PG&E on that. That's the Rule 28
yes,
funding.
Thank you.
There's a little over $1 million in that, and so we've been working with the representative, our engineering team has. So
good.
That is on the radar.
And I know 2010, as she mentioned, it was talked about quite a while. And then, well, we had the facade plan and a redub, but we didn't want to do anything until the power lines were put underground. So just to put that all together. So certainly, and I like the idea this is all going to kind of put everything together, all the components of what we've already done in the past to bring forward to the future. And thank you for bringing this up. I think it's a great idea. Any other comments on this item we have from the audience?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any comments on this item from the public.
I'd entertain a motion from council.
I move that we approve. Well, we direct the city administrator to execute that MOU once signed by APA, which would include the travel cost expenditures of up to $8,000.
I second.
Call the roll.
Thank you, Wes.
Yes, thank you, Wes.
Motion
Very good.
carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
All right. Next item is we have another public communication hearing of non-agenda items. Anyone in the audience like to make a non-agenda item?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any blue speaker cards.
Okay, thank you. Next item is council announcements and reports. I'll start off with, I got a chance to visit the Havens Court project up at the Southside Community Center last day or two. They're growing. I had to congratulate them on a tremendous success. They've got new staff even be added to it. So it's a place that you can have families have round-the-clock daycare.
24.
24-hour daycare there. So certainly it's a wonderful activity. And that's just my short report. Councilman Goodson.
Yes, I just want to share, was it yesterday? Was it yesterday? It's Tuesday. It was, the meetings just blend and the dates. Last night was our NAACP Butte County 1029 B meeting, and we had that meeting is held monthly and it's held virtually. And so I asked Chief Lagrone if he would be the guest speaker, and many in the community had heard about the automated license plate reader and audio, and so they had requested more information. It was an excellent presentation. I really appreciate you, Bill, providing that. And I must say that it was excellent. It was detailed. The dialogue back and forth, questions and answers was just really handled professionally, which you always do. So what I did notice in the virtual, and I call it people in the queue, there was like a sigh of relief once they understood and had a better understanding of what this system would entail. Nobody balked at the price. If it could save one person, that was huge. So they really appreciated you. I got a lot of feedback afterwards. So kudos.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It was actually a very comfortable meeting. I mean, it was good dialogue back and forth.
Yes. Thank you.
Councilman Riggs.
Thank you. A few meetings ago, I was assigned to the ad hoc committee for the library, and I just wanted to share that I attended the first meeting for that and found it to be very informative on all of the services that our local library offers and the participation. So we're continuing to have those meetings. Really what we're looking at is how can we adequately fund the library as law enforcement and other expenditures continue to eat up the general fund budget for the county. And so as that develops, I think that in the future it'd be beneficial to have a brief presentation to council, but I wanted to report back that we should all be very proud of our local library and take a visit as well. That's all.
Chrissy, has it already been decided, or are they still entertaining a reduction of those library hours?
The library hours have been reduced this year
already.
and would like, without without a strategy change or a new funding mechanism, would likely continue to be reduced in coming years.
Okay.
So we are coming up with some creative ideas to help address that.
Okay.
Among other issues within the county.
Thank you.
It's great.
I don't see anyone else. I would like to also report that just because there was an earthquake doesn't mean we disregarded it. There was a lot of communications that occurred with our emergencies representatives and the city staff about the earthquake and the fact that there were concerns. So just to know, there was a lot of phone calls that was made that night to a lot of folks, and everything looks good, obviously, at this point. Department heads. Any staff reports? Who's up first? Okay.
Let's see. All right. Just a couple quick items to report back. The mayor and I met with the chief administrative officer of the county as well as Supervisor Bill Conley. We decided we're going to try to meet quarterly just to talk about issues that are there's some synergy with regards to the city and the county. One of the items was the library. We talked briefly about that and talked about the fact that the ad hoc committee did this get together. So I think that's encouraging. It's been a good rapport, good dialogue back and forth, and look forward to those meetings going forward in the future. Also had a nice meeting last Friday with internal staff and state parks, as well as with representatives who operate the forebay. And I know one of the items that was discussed here on the dais a couple months ago was the idea of something going on at the forebay, like a water apparatus, for no better term. Mm-hmm. And turns out they actually purchased one of these water apparatuses before COVID. And so that was enlightening, at least to me. And they're going to start operating it this summer. So this, I think they're going to try it once a day, likely on a Saturday or a Sunday. And then there's some permitting issues that we're working with them on. But they're going to break it out. They've had it for a couple of years now. I believe it was funded with SBF dollars. So it was something that was discussed, and I just wanted to share that it's coming probably really soon, which is pretty exciting news. So,
is that like a Tarzan Island?
Kind of, yeah. It's an expandable floating water structure with slides on it and other. I can send you what they purchased.
It's basically an inflatable bounce house on water.
Yeah.
To play on.
And I think you glossed over it quickly, is that it's expandable. So, like, we have one component and can, over time, continue to build more components in order to make a really unique activity.
So if it's been in a harbor for the past 2 years due to COVID, how's that elasticity?
You know, he didn't seem concerned. It is a significantly high-end industrial product. So, but I agree. So it's been sitting in a box.
It's kind of stiff.
So it's a significant. It's going to take a lot of work to get it on and off the water once a week. Ideally, they have it anchored out there, but there's some permit issues that they're working through, and so we're going to try to assist them where we can on that matter to see if we can't get it out there on a permanent basis, and then see how successful it is. But I think that was I know this council has talked a lot about utilizing the beauty that we have here with the river and forebay, and I think I was super excited when we met with them last Friday. I was like, this is great news because it was something that I know this council had discussed. So,
and so who was it that was in that meeting?
It was state parks. It was Aaron and then 2 representatives, and I just met them. Do you remember Brad
yeah.
and Tom? What was it? God, I have their cards on my desk. I feel bad.
So really, this is my question: who's getting the revenue?
It'd probably be the Feather River Center.
Yeah. And it's going to be their idea right now is the discussions are like, you know, if you go to a
just like the rental center,
a bounce house place, you get a wristband for an hour, and
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's run by the Aquatic Center.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's where the revenue is.
That's where the revenue is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Any other department heads?
Just one more item, Mr. Mayor. This with the as you don't see Ruth up there in the corner, right? Because Ruth is at her computer right now.
She's on here.
I'm not sure if Ruth is busily working on the budget right now, and I'll speak for this really quick. The idea is to bring the preliminary proposed budget to the council on June 6th, and then have the public hearing and hopefully adoption of the budget on June 20th. And again, Ruth has been spending with staff a lot of time on the budget, and it's our goal that I also schedule some meetings with all of you to go over the budget the week before it comes before the full council. So stay tuned for that.
Is this homework?
I'm here. Just want to say hi.
Hi, Ruth.
Hi.
Yes.
You guys
All
are
right.
just making my night.
Do it.
Wow. Oh, I want to go to this park. Yeah. Okay, who's up next? Obviously, we got some pictures here.
I can go next if you want. All right.
Go, Ron.
So, I am loaning 25% of a code enforcement technician to the Public Works Manager, Wade Atterbury, and they're going to address some of the landscape management agreement issues with some of the commercial structures that are in this agreement with the city. Make sure they're maintaining their landscape as it was designed. Deal with some of the overwatering issues that is affecting the pavement and some of the tree issues that are affecting our sidewalk. He's also going to work on some tree encroachment situations and landscapers that have a habit of blowing their leaves and trash out into our city streets that subsequently end up in the storm drain. So I have a code enforcement technician who's going to ride around with Wade, address some issues, and then that's going to be his point of contact when he sees new issues that come up.
Good, great idea.
And then working with Butte County Behavioral Health right now, try to get the REST team connected with my code enforcement team as further outreach to the unhoused individuals. I'm in a pilot program right now with Paradise Police Department, Chico Police Department, hopefully get them with some of the municipal law enforcement officers so they can go out and address some of the 5150 issues out in our community. And there has been some positive impact working with Butte County Behavioral Health. There was 2 individuals that were frequent flyers and issues daily, sometimes 3 and 4 calls a day at Feather River, Montgomery. And one of those individuals has been relocated with family out of state, and another individual's in housing. And not exaggerating, approximately 400 to 500 calls, police calls a year for these 2 individuals. So, I mean, hats off to the Butte County Behavioral Health team, because I never thought that was a possibility with these 2 individuals. I don't want to mention their names, but that was a positive thing to hear about. And then my code enforcement team's getting ready to do some the fire inspections. I've got them matched up with our IT guys. They're going to be using the ArcGIS program. They'll go out with iPads. They'll have mapping systems on there. They will be able to touch the properties that are in violation. They'll come back, this information is downloaded, and then letters are produced to go out to the property owners. Because we do approximately 4,000 inspections, fire inspections. And working with IT and getting this program up, and Jesse doing the GIS work for us, it will make it a lot easier and a lot faster. And then tomorrow, our code enforcement technician team, and I've invited our other partners in City Hall to join us for the accessory dwelling unit training. And it's going to talk about it's an introduction to the regulations for state and local for the ADUs and the junior ADUs. And we're going to learn the impacts they have on the city, and then also how to enforce when they aren't doing them properly.
Ron, when is that again, Ron?
That's tomorrow. It's from 10 in the morning till noon. It's put on by the California Association of Code Enforcement Officers.
And that'll be in this room?
We'll have it in our office. You want to stop by and take a look, you can hang out with us.
Thanks.
Bring food. They like to eat.
Okay, go
Yeah,
ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I'll jump in real quick. I had the first inaugural meeting that I attended of the task force, the coalition task force related to sober living environments. They're just by the flavor of the room from what was going on, from some of the comments, there is clearly a problem in some Southern California cities where these are really concentrated, and it is causing some significant issues. We're not seeing the issues that many others are seeing, thankfully. But there was an assembly member there with several more committed to work on this issue. There were mayors, council members, there were a lot of lawyers, which is always a good time. Anyway, there was a good discussion about some possible avenues of legislation to go down, but everyone was quick to say, this legislation may not be effective because of federal preemption. So there may be some areas where this may be a longer term workaround than some are hoping. Yeah. But anyway, as of now, there's no take home message other than just
it's an ongoing.
The wheels are starting to turn.
Yeah, good approach. Dawn?
Yes. Before you have two items, and I have a third to report on as well. We were tasked with the history of the Liberty Pole and flying a flag on it. I poured through agendas and minutes through the history of the city and agreements. Can't find anything as to specific ownership. It appears that we have inherited the Liberty Pole. It was first set in its current location back in 1857 by two gentlemen who traveled here from New York. So before you have a bit of history, there's two Liberty Poles in town, one in the BCOE property, and then the existing one that we have also at the corner of Montgomery and Huntoon. One thing that we need to install to make it legal for us to, or appropriate for us to fly our nation's flag 24/7 is lighting. It has to be illuminated at night. So our former city electrician was looking into that. He has parted from the city to go to the private sector. So we have our contract electricians looking into it. We anticipate it'll cost no more than $5,000 to illuminate it. We're looking at various options. The new electricians will be in town this next week to provide us some feedback on that, and we'll get that illuminated as soon as we can. But I just wanted to, again, provide you with some history there and an update as to what the plan is. There was also a question about the flagpole in front of City Hall. We currently had a 3-foot by 4-foot flag on it, and a 4-by-6 flag has been ordered. So we can increase the size of that. Cool. The second item is Hewitt Park progress. You'll have 3 elevated renderings in front of you, and that is our updated version of what the current play structure, it's all-inclusive play through the splash pad and the playground. So that's just a beginning. We'll publish this on Facebook tomorrow for the community to see, but we wanted you guys to have the first look at it. Cool. So. Cool. And then, good. We hope to break ground this September. Our construction RFP documents will go out in July. And I'm sorry, my daughter's friend was calling me. And we are currently having our Public Works Department do some of the preliminary rough grading, site improvements. The bocce ball courts have been removed and basketball court concrete has been poured. So that'll offset the funding that goes towards the grant. And then the Clean California progress, the on-ramp, off-ramp landscape locations at Montgomery and Oro Dam Boulevard, as you can see, are in progress with Caltrans. We met out there today with the Rainforest Art Project Group, who was awarded the Arts RFP, and their artwork is completed. And once Caltrans gets the structures for installation set, then the artwork will be set. So we anticipate June, July for the artwork and landscape to be completed in those locations. So our entrances and exit to Oroville will be beautified.
All right. Very good. Thank you. Amy, go ahead.
Thank you. I wanted to let you know that we pushed out an ad on Facebook today and possibly do an interview with the media tomorrow regarding our owner-occupied housing rehabilitation program. We have a lot of funding that we have available for rehabilitations, and now is a great time to fix those roofs for this coming winter. So I just was hoping you guys would share on your Facebook page, and then encourage people to come see myself or Caitlin.
Cool. Thank you.
I will share it.
Mr. Mayor, I just have a couple quick things. I just wanted to let the council know that last week we had 2 very rambunctious group of kindergartners that came through the public safety facility and toured both the police and fire side. It was done very well. I have to tell Kelly Riley I really appreciate the work that she puts in on that and doing that and coordinating those efforts. It was good to see the kindergartners move Rescue Randy around. He's a 200-pound dummy. It takes 4 of them, 4 kindergartners, because that was the thing, was how many kindergartners does it take to move a 200-pound dummy? I mean, and it's like, no, it's not me that I need moved, it's that guy. So it was good to see that, and it was nice to have them there, and we had a really good time with them there. Last night at the NAACP meeting, one of the comments that came was the expressed desire to continue our community engagement with the community and to restart and facilitate the meet and greets that we have had over the past many years. So this summer we will be doing that. We began the initial talks on that this morning about how we're going to do that and how we're going to move forward.
And make sure it's the hottest day of the year.
It doesn't matter what day we pick, it will be the hottest day of the year. I mean,
Okay. I'd like to add, too, that the docents put out a letter about the museums. It's really a good letter. I mean, very well put together, pictures, the whole thing, compliments to them. And our Heather, our docent leader, did a great job with that. With all that being said, I think it's time for adjournment.
All right.
Oh.
Any future agenda items? I'm not sure if we hit on that.
Any future agenda items? I didn't see anybody raise their hands.
A subscription to Chico
newspaper,
Enterprise, and Mercury.
Yes, we are.
You're moving forward with
yes.
that?
Yep,
All
we
right.
are.
Thank you.
Yep, we're just working on some accessibility issues to it, so it's going to be online.
Go ahead, Councilman Weber.
Yeah, thank you. Do we need to make an agenda item for that?
If the bid comes in under the $5,000, no, we do not.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that follow-up on that. That's good to see. Any others? I'm looking back and forth. We're good. I'll adjourn the meeting for regular meeting be held on June 6th,